If you love Baltimore sports, you'll love WNST.net.
Welcome back. We are at Padonia Ale House tonight in Timonium. We're doing it for There Goes My Hero. Give it up for our Super Bowl MVP quarterback. I love saying that. Joe Flacco. So I put out on Twitter today about questions and weird questions, and I thought, like, my weird fanboy question for you, and this is my weird fanboy question. You ready? Have you ever touched Johnny Unitas' shoe on the statue? I'm just wondering. Have you ever gone out and touched this?
No, I don't. I probably. Where is the statue? Kind of like right as you come out of our lot, and you make a. Do you know where?
No, it's in the opposite end of the stadium from where you enter. It's
yeah, but you know where our lot is.
Yes.
Our parking lot.
Yeah.
You know, if I come out of there and make a right to kind of get on to wind on to 95.
I
think
it's
right there.
It's at the 50-yard line on the other side of the stadium.
Yeah.
Trust me, it is.
Yeah,
I've been there.
I'm asking.
It's on the 50,
I don't know if I've ever even seen it.
Where you walk.
My family goes out that side. They've probably seen it. I've probably not even been close enough to touch it.
It's on the side where the baseball stadium is. That's something you must do. You've never touched Johnny's shoe.
Like I said, I don't even think I've been close enough to it as to where I could touch it.
So here's the story.
I would definitely do it.
You get drafted in April, and within a couple of weeks, you and your dad came down, and we walked to Amici's, and we had an Italian meal together. And I remember this about you, because I remember all this stuff. We were walking through the harbor. We were right by the Trade Center, and you said to me, tell me something about Johnny Unitas. Like, you asked me about Johnny Unitas. You asked me where Memorial Stadium was, because you didn't really know. You were so new to the city.
I still don't really know where it would be. Somewhere.
It's a YMCA now. It's on 33rd, and it's really close to Hopkins University.
Yeah, I was going to say somewhere up near there.
Yeah.
I could kind of picture it in my mind, but I really wouldn't know.
So the Johnny Unitas thing, does that ever? I mean, you get that all the time, right? Old timers will say, "You remind me of Johnny U. You know, you got the flat top, you got this, you got that." Does that ever come up? A little bit,
and it's awesome. Yeah, it comes up a little bit, and you know, I mean, shoot, it's unbelievable. I mean, Johnny Unitas, he's one of the best quarterbacks ever. I mean, but it's usually people outside of, not when I'm playing football or not even necessarily about football, but you can get a good sense of what people thought about Johnny, in this town, and it's pretty cool to, because back then, I mean, more so than now, those guys were a part of this community. I mean, they not only played football here, but they lived here, they worked here, in some way. I don't know about Johnny. I mean, he might have been big enough not to, but a lot of the
Johnny was here every minute of every day.
I mean,
Johnny's been in this room 100 times.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of those guys worked here, other than football because they had to. So it's pretty cool to, I wish he's one of the guys, you see a couple of the old Colts around, and, I wish he was still around to kind of be around the facility here and there. And, I mean, every now and then you kind of think he is around because his son Chad looks just like him when he walks around the facility. So
yeah, I saw Chad last week.
But yeah, I mean, Johnny Unitas, he's one of the best quarterbacks that ever played the game, and he was right here in Baltimore. It's definitely a really cool thing.
All right, so I feel like I'm the Baltimore ombudsman for you. There's two things you need to do now. You need to get swabbed tonight, and you need to touch Johnny Unitas'
Johnny's shoe.
Dude, I don't know. You won the Super Bowl without ever touching his shoe. I don't know. Maybe you shouldn't touch his shoe. I don't know. You're doing all right as it worked out. So, I just know you pretty well at this point. I've been to your home. I wrote a book. We've talked hours upon hours about football, and I wish some of the conversations we had over coffee and pancakes that I actually had it, because I think there's this part of you that was very unguarded in writing the book and stuff. But your family and the sort of grounded nature that happened for you, when I went up and visited you last year, your whole town had signs everywhere. It was so mid-American for being dirty Philadelphia. You know what I mean? The place you're from, honest to God, it's like Parkville. It's Philadelphia. It is. Come on.
Yes, I know. It
is. You try to oversell, like, no, I'm from Jersey.
No, I don't try to say that.
Dude, you're Philly.
Depending on where I'm from, I say I'm from Philadelphia because it's, it's how it is. I mean, come on, I would think the majority of Eagles fans are from South Jersey, not from, I don't even know if they're from Pennsylvania.
He picked me up and he put me in his truck, and we drove to the football field where he played high school football. The field, I swear to God, is as big as this room. It doesn't even look like 100 yards. It's this little schoolhouse. It looked like it was built in the 40s or the 50s. But here's the wild part, and I didn't know this, and I wrote about this. We got out of the car, and I looked, and I'm like, that's Philadelphia. Like, the whole city, you can see all the buildings from where you play football.
I think if you drew a straight line, from Center City to my house, obviously not going roads and stuff like that. If you just drew a straight line from Center City to where I grew up, I think it's like 5 miles or just under 5 miles.
I was going to say 6, but yeah, I mean, it's that close. And this thing with your family, here's the great question. I want to get Eric Sauer, and from there goes my hero. He's the founder and the reason we're here tonight raising money. And John from Great Moments just came up and gave you a $2,000 check. $2,000 check from Joe and from John at Great Moments. So give him a round of applause. His location's right down the street here. Stop and see him. Joe said to me during the break, you said,
I was asking
how do you
about,
get a match?
I was asking about, in terms of getting a match for your bone marrow, I was asking about siblings and, and how that works. Are they automatically a match or?
Because your brother was up here, right?
Yeah, my brother was here.
Yeah, is that not a guaranteed thing?
Not a guarantee. So it's your parents are going to be a 50% match, and so there's a 25% chance a sibling's going to be a perfect match.
Well, Joe's lucky. He's got a couple of. He's got a whole Brady Bunch family. He's got a whole bunch.
So obviously, the more siblings you have, the better chance you have. But still, it's
still the same odds.
Still the same odds. You got a 25% chance of it.
When we talked to the doctors last week about her donor, and by the way, her donor's going to the hospital in a few hours to give the marrow, which will be flown here, which will be dumped into my wife on Thursday night. And we were asking all sorts of questions, and I said, because they said she had 2 perfect matches in the registry that they ran the numbers on. There used to be 6 items that they looked for in DNA markers. There's now 10.
There's now 10. That's
2
right.
people had 10 for 10. And I said, well, how do you pick? And they said, we always pick the younger person. We always pick the male. And I said, why? Why not a female? And the lady over here with the Todd Heap jersey's like, oh, that's a Dennis Pitta jersey. Says, Pitta Heap, they're the same person. I've never seen them in the same room together, trust me. They said they don't pick the women because women that have children have a compromised immune system. And they said they always pick the male, and it's so funny. I know 2 survivors here in the room tonight, Michelle Bresnick-Walsh and you, both female.
Both female.
Both female donors.
But is it after they've had children or before?
I think they always take the male anyway. But, but you only have 1 match in the world.
Here's my question. You can be matched with, a random female from Germany, but are you saying that your parents one of your parents definitely couldn't be a match?
My parents could not be a match.
Yeah, even though some random person could be, your parents, there's no chance of them ever being
because you're going to be a split of both.
Of them.
Right.
That's kind of weird.
And the other issue is this. If your parents are older, like my wife's 42, her sister has MS. Her sister was not a match, wasn't one of the 25%. So we knew we were going to have to go to the registry. And that's when I met Eric. I met Eric, and this is what Eric does.
I remember you telling me that now.
Yeah, and her parents are in their 60s, and they don't want to take marrow from older people for a lot of reasons, right?
No, for a lot of reasons. And leukemia tends to be a disease of the really old and really young. It's a flaw in your bone marrow. And when you're older, those flaws tend to be more prevalent. So they don't want to give you something that could ultimately cause problems in and of itself.
Well, we're doing it, and I'm going to get Joe Flacco to swab. Eugene Monroe swabbed at our event. Now, Pitta and Heath both said that they swabbed at an event in Arizona last year.
That's right.
That they had someone in their group.
And our young wide receiver.
There was a child.
Our young wide receiver friend?
Yeah, they had a child who was really, really sick. And they went out and did a benefit, and they got swabbed. They got on the registry. So, by the way, and this is another thing for some of your teammates, give the statistics on African Americans and minorities of any kind.
They're low. I mean, if you go 4 out of 10 for the world as a pool,
I just kicked something off, I think.
That's all right.
Bottle of water.
Clean it up.
When you start,
Flacco's trash in the place.
When you start going into the African American community or into other minority communities, you're talking about numbers less than 1. A decimal point and then a number.
Yeah, I talked to Torrey Smith about that. I talked to Steve Smith. I think we're going to be doing these swabbings all through the football season for all of our live shows every week. Please, a round of applause for our Gen Strong Angels. These are some of our best friends for me and my wife. I don't want to name them all because I've seen so many incredible people here that have reached out to us, and we're talking some football.
What does the transplant actually entail from both parts these days?
Okay, so I thought when they said to my wife, you need a bone marrow transplant, I thought they would be taking a chainsaw from ABC Rental and slicing her open, and they would dump marrow into her. Like, that's just what my stupid mind thought.
That would be a misconception.
That would be a huge misconception.
Yep.
So on March 20th, we're diagnosed. We find out. I'm like, what is a bone marrow transplant? And we found out, I mean, I shuddered at the thought of my wife with a bone marrow transplant. She has a port that's attached to her. You probably have your scars. All the survivors like to show their scars.
Yeah, too.
We went to the Leukemia Lymphoma Society ball last week. My wife's bald. She's in a gown. And all these women, breast cancer survivors, were coming up and ripping their shirt to show their hole. She has a hole right here in her chest that has a Hickman port. It has 2 tubes that hang out of it. Literally, the marrow will just flow into her the same way the chemo flowed into her, the same way all of her antibiotics, the same way at 11 o'clock
blood
tonight.
Transfusion.
Yeah, blood transfusion, the whole deal. She had that port put in the first morning. And this is where the story gets cool. When they wheeled her in to get her port, the first night, she's scared. She's frightened beyond belief. I had to leave the hospital. I had to do 6 a.m. radio the next day. I left her in the hospital 11 o'clock at night. I woke up at 4:30 in the morning to do radio, and there was a picture on my phone. I might cry telling this story, so I'm just going to try to tell it without getting crazy. When she got wheeled in at 4 in the morning, she didn't know her blood type. She's diabetic, and you knew that. I mean, she gives needles 2 times a day. She pricks her fingers. There's blood all over my place all the time because she's always pricking her fingers and checking her number. She never knew her blood type, and she looked up at the bag of blood, and it said B positive. Her blood type was B positive. And she said, picture of that. She made it her Facebook picture and said she wants everyone to be positive for her. So here we are. You know, we're 48 hours out. We've raised $12,000 for you and counting. We might get over 20 grand before the night's over. We've swabbed over 1,000 people, and we're going to continue to swab people. I think this is a lifetime sentence, the swabbing thing. I think this is something we're going to do the rest of our lives at every event we ever do for Eric. Especially given that we believe my wife's going to survive at this point. We've always believed that, but the doctors in the beginning dumped so much chemo into her because she had such a rare type of leukemia that now the doctor said to us last week, because my wife's been getting scared with her liver elevated, and the doctor said the other day, you've crossed the highest hurdle already. It's kind of like you're already the Super Bowl MVP. What good's the Pro Bowl to you now, you know? So they said to her, You've hit the high hurdle. We think you're going to be fine. And the doctors keep saying to her, the last 2 weeks, we think you're going to be fine. They were not saying that to her in March and April until she got to remission in May.
Well, Joe asked about what a bone marrow transplant is, and it's somewhat anticlimactic. You get a bag of bone marrow, and it goes in through this port, and all of a sudden you've had a bone marrow transplant. Here we are.
It's going to take an hour.
If you love Baltimore sports, you'll love WNST.net.